Hello. So, for context, I am 25 years old and my boyfriend is 27. We've been together for 3 years and plan to be together for the rest of our lives. He's a wonderful person, so caring, loving, and generous. I feel honestly blessed to have found him. One of the biggest differences between him and me is our upbringings. He has grown up in a very loving and stable household, in a family that is very, very wealthy. They weren't always rich. In fact, when he was a baby, his parents had barely anything. But very early on in his life, his parents started to make a lot of money. So he has had wealth for most of his life. He himself now owns 5 properties and runs his own business, which is a brick-and-mortar office, turning over $200,000 a year, with him as the sole employee. He's worked very hard, and I honestly am always so impressed by him and his drive. But I also know that he was primarily able to achieve all this because of his circumstances in life. For further context, he has never bought his own car. They were always bought for him. He has never paid for rent, insurance, groceries, medical bills, anything. Whenever he has had a large expense, such as nice clothes, a holiday, or a fine, his parents foot the bill to support him. They also do things like send him $1,000 randomly to help with random purchases and support his lifestyle. So the other day, I was retelling to him a funny interaction I had with a new friend who was asking about my partner's work after I had mentioned to her I was helping him pick out carpets for a new house he's building. I told her that he has a couple properties, runs his own business, and is just a couple years older than me. She was shocked at first and couldn't believe it, but then paused and asked me, "Oh, wait, is his family loaded?" I told her, "Yes, they are." And she said, "No, it makes sense." I was just telling this story in passing and didn't even think it would faze him, but it really got to him, and he started explaining how starting his businesses was incredibly low risk and something that anyone could have done. That the only reason he has his business is because of his drive and hard work. I started to explain to him how actually taking days off work to start dedicating yourself to a personal business is very risky, and how a lot of people would not have been able to do it at his age and certainly not have built it as quickly as he did. I kept saying that it was still impressive and laudable that he built it, and it did take a lot of hard work, but if just a few circumstances of his life were different, it would have been a lot more difficult and a lot more risky. He really took this to heart, and we ended up in almost a fight, with him insisting that, for example, a single mother working full-time who cannot afford childcare on the weekend would have equally been able to start a business, but people just want to work for someone else. I was honestly really shocked by all this. He usually is very empathetic and level-headed, but this made him angry, and he couldn't understand how his privilege allowed him to have such quick success in his career. He only started working full-time 2.5 years ago. To be honest, I found it really unattractive. I was telling him how I think remaining humble and knowing the realities of your life is so important, but he wouldn't budge the slightest and ended up saying he didn't want to talk to me anymore and hung up the phone. I want to know if I was just being an asshole laboring a point that was useless. I didn't grow up with a whole lot of privilege, so I also acknowledge maybe this is coming from a place of jealousy, but I can't help but feel that this just painted him in a new and very unattractive light for me. Is this as big a deal as it feels?